Jake Morrison walked through the tall doors of the Galactic Council building. The massive hall stretched before him like a football stadium. Hundreds of alien beings sat in curved rows that went up to the ceiling. Their strange shapes and colors made the place look like a rainbow had exploded. Jake wore his simple gray uniform with the Earth symbol on his chest. He looked small next to the giant creatures around him. Some aliens had 6 arms, others floated in the air, and a few glowed with their own light. But Jake did not feel scared. He had been Earth's voice in this place for 5 years. The Zalani Chancellor stood at the center podium. Vextar was twice as tall as any human, with 4 thick arms and skin that looked like blue metal. His voice boomed across the hall when he spoke. "The human species has become a problem," Vextar said. His words echoed off the walls. They build too many ships. They explore too much space. They ask too many questions. Jake listened without moving his face. He had heard these complaints before. The other species did not like how fast humans learned new things. They did not like how humans fixed problems that had confused aliens for hundreds of years. A Karathi delegate stood up next. The creature looked like a giant spider made of glass. Its voice sounded like wind through trees. "Humans fight too much. They solved our war with the Rigel pirates in 3 months. Wars should take years to end properly." An Asthari floated forward. The being was made of pure light that hurt to look at directly. Humans lack spiritual wisdom. They care more about making things work than understanding the deeper meaning of existence. More aliens spoke against humans. Each one had a different complaint. Humans were too loud, too quiet, too fast, too slow, too smart, too simple. Jake wrote notes on his tablet but said nothing. Finally, Vextar raised all 4 arms for silence. "The Galactic Council has made a decision. Humanity must stop building military ships. You must let us watch all your science projects. You must ask permission before exploring new star systems." The hall became very quiet. Even the floating aliens stopped moving. Everyone waited to see what the human would say. Vextar continued, "You have 7 cycles to agree to our terms. If you refuse, we will stop trading with you. We will not let your ships use our space stations. We might even send our fleets to make you obey." Jake stood up slowly. His boots made small sounds on the metal floor. He walked to the speakers area in the center of the hall. Hundreds of alien eyes watched him. "The United Earth Federation will give you an answer before the deadline," Jake said. His voice was calm and clear. He did not sound angry or scared. "That is all?" asked the Triarch delegate. The 3-headed alien seemed surprised. "No arguments? No threats?" Jake looked around the huge room. He seemed to be remembering every detail. The way the light came through the crystal windows. The smell of different alien atmospheres mixing together. The sound of thousands of beings breathing in ways humans could never do. "We will consider your words carefully," Jake said. "Earth always thinks before acting." He turned and walked toward the exit. His footsteps echoed in the silent hall. No alien spoke until the doors closed behind him. In his private room later, Jake sent a message to Earth. The words were simple, but carried great weight. "They want us to kneel or face the consequences. Recommend we choose option 3. President." Lisa Carter received the message in her office in New York. She read it twice, then called an emergency meeting. Within hours, the most important humans on Earth were talking about what to do next. The conversation lasted 3 days. Some wanted to fight. Others wanted to negotiate. But Lisa had a different idea. She remembered something her grandfather told her long ago. Sometimes the best way to win a fight is to walk away and let the other person realize what they lost. Back on the council station, aliens talked excitedly about their victory. They had finally put the dangerous humans in their place. No more. Human ships flying everywhere. No more human engineers fixing things too quickly. No more human doctors saving lives that should have stayed lost according to natural law. Vex-Tar felt very pleased with himself. He had united all the species against the human threat. Soon the galaxy would return to the peaceful, slow way things used to be. But in his quarters, Jake was packing his belongings. He took down pictures of his family and wrapped them carefully. He sealed his books in boxes and labeled them for shipping. His movements were calm and steady, like someone who had made a difficult decision and found peace with it. The aliens thought they had won something important. They had no idea what was coming next. 3 days after Jake's meeting with the Council, something strange began happening across the galaxy. Human ships started leaving their posts quietly, like morning mist disappearing when the sun rises. Commander Rick Hayes stood in the cargo bay of Harmony Station, watching his crew load boxes onto transport ships. The station was a joint project between humans and aliens, built to study how space and time worked. For 10 years, humans and aliens had worked side by side here, making discoveries that changed how everyone understood the universe. Dr. Zeleth approached Rick with confused movements. The Karathi scientist had worked with humans longer than most aliens. His glass-like body reflected the station lights as he walked. "Rick, what is happening here?" Dr. Zeleth asked. "Your people are packing everything. Are you moving to a different section of the station?" Rick sealed another box of equipment. Inside were tools that humans had built to measure things too small for alien instruments to detect. "We're going home, Zeleth. All of us." "Home? But this is your home too. You helped build this place." Rick looked around the cargo bay. He had spent 3 years of his life in this room, training alien crews how to handle dangerous materials safely. The walls still showed scorch marks from early experiments that had gone wrong before humans figured out the correct procedures. "We built it, but apparently we don't belong here anymore," Rick said. He did not sound angry, just tired. The Council made that very clear. Dr. Zeleth's body flickered with colors that meant distress in Karathi culture. "But surely there can be discussion, compromise. We can work together to find a solution." "The time for discussion ended when the Council gave us an ultimatum," Rick replied. "They want us to submit or face consequences. We choose option 3. "What is option 3? Rick picked up his personal bag and looked at his alien friend one. "Last time. We leave." The same scene happened on hundreds of worlds and stations across the galaxy. Humans quietly packed their belongings and headed for Earth ships waiting in orbit. They did not protest or argue. They simply left. On the medical station, Hope Dr. Helen Brooks finished her last surgery. The patient was a triarch child who had been born with a heart defect. Human medical techniques had saved thousands of young aliens over the years. Helen had personally developed 3 new procedures that cut surgery time in half. Her Asthari partner, Lysandra, watched Helen clean her surgical tools one final time. The light being's glow dimmed with sadness. "You saved that child's life," Lysandra said. "How can you leave when there are others who need your skills?" Helen carefully placed each tool in its case. "There will always be others who need help, but the Council has decided that human methods are too dangerous to continue." "They did not mean medical work. Surely they understand how much good you do." "The ultimatum did not make exceptions," Helen said simply. "All human activities must be supervised. That includes surgery. I will not operate on children while Council observers take notes and question every decision I make." Lysandra's light pulsed rapidly. "But who will perform the complex procedures? Who will train new doctors in your techniques?" Helen closed her medical bag and looked around the surgery room. "You will find a way. You always do." In the shipping lanes between stars, human cargo vessels finished their final runs. Captain Ben Foster brought his ship into dock at the Centauri Trade Hub for the last time. The station's loading bays buzzed with activity as alien crews tried to handle the work that humans had done smoothly for decades. The dock supervisor, a Zalani named Korth, watched containers being moved with less efficiency than before. "Foster, your crew could help us reorganize these loading patterns. We are having difficulties." Ben watched an alien crew struggle with a container that his team could have moved in minutes. "Sorry, Korth. Our cargo license expires tomorrow. After that, we're not authorized to work in council space. But the trade routes will suffer. Your ships carry 40% of all cargo between the inner systems. Then other ships will have to carry more," Ben said. "The galaxy worked before humans arrived. It will work after we leave." Korth's 4 arms moved in patterns that showed worry. "The Council did not intend to disrupt trade. Perhaps they will reconsider." Ben started his ship's engines. "Perhaps they will. But until they do, this is our last run." On research stations and exploration ships, in hospitals and factories, the pattern repeated. Humans completed their current work, filed their final reports, and departed. They honored every contract to the letter but made no new agreements. What puzzled aliens most was how calm the humans seemed. There were no angry speeches or demands for justice, no threats of revenge or promises to return. Humans simply finished what they were doing and left. President Lisa Carter received daily reports from around the galaxy. Human population in alien. Space dropped by 90% in 2 weeks. Only a few diplomats and essential personnel remained, and they would leave soon, too. "They think they're punishing us," Lisa told her advisors during a cabinet meeting. "They have no idea what they're really doing." Admiral John Parker, head of the Earth Defense Force, looked at the numbers on his screen. "Our industrial capacity is now concentrated entirely in human space. Our research is no longer being shared. Our ships are no longer maintaining trade, routes that we built." "How long before they notice the real effects?" asked Secretary of Science, Dr. Amy Wells. Lisa smiled, but there was no happiness in it. "Longer than you might think. They're so busy celebrating their victory that they won't see the problems until it's too late to ignore them." Back on Harmony Station, Dr. Zillith stood in his laboratory alone. Around him were machines that humans had built, running experiments that humans had designed. He tried to adjust one device the way he had seen Rick do it hundreds of times. The machine sparked and shut down. An error message appeared in human writing that Zillith could not read. He realized that he had been watching humans work for 10 years without ever learning how they actually did what they did. For the first time, a cold feeling of fear crept into his mind. What if the humans never came back? What if the galaxy had just lost something it could never replace? But it was too late for such thoughts. The human ships were already gone, heading home to Earth. Behind them, they left a galaxy that was about to learn a very expensive lesson about taking things for granted. The Galactic Council chamber filled with celebration sounds as Vextar announced their success. Alien delegates made noises of approval in dozens of different ways. The Karathi clicked their glass bodies together like wind chimes. The Asthari pulsed with bright, happy colors. Even the normally quiet Triarchs hummed in harmony. "The human threat has been contained," Vextar declared, his 4 arms spread wide in victory. "Order has returned to our galaxy." Senator Alan Pierce sat alone in the observer section, the only human left in the council building. His small notebook lay open on his lap as he wrote down everything he saw and heard. The aliens paid no attention to him, treating him like furniture. "The humans have shown their true nature," said High Delegate Morthak of the Karathi. "When faced with reasonable demands, they ran away like frightened children. Their withdrawal proves they were never worthy of equal status," added Asthari Representative Zenial. "True civilized beings would have stayed to discuss terms." Alan kept writing. He noted how the aliens seemed to believe their own stories about human cowardice. They had convinced themselves that fear, not wisdom, had driven humanity away. In the weeks that followed, the council members competed to fill the spaces humans had left behind. Karathi companies took over shipping routes that human vessels had maintained. Astari researchers moved into laboratories that human scientists had built. Zalani administrators claimed offices in stations that human engineers had designed. The transition felt smooth at first. Ships still moved between stars. Cargo still reached its destinations. Research projects continued with new alien staff. The council members congratulated themselves on their efficient management of the situation. "We have proven that the galaxy does not need human interference," Vextar told the council during a regular session. "Production levels remain stable. Trade continues normally. Scientific progress moves forward." But Alan noticed small problems that the council ignored. Loading times at cargo stations increased by 15%. Research projects took longer to complete. Equipment broke down more often than before. "These are normal growing pains," Delegate Morthak explained when someone mentioned the delays. "Any major change requires an adjustment period. We will adapt and improve." Alan wrote this down too. He had filled 3 notebooks already and was starting a 4th. The aliens divided up human territories among themselves. The Karathi claimed the asteroid mining operations that humans had built in the Rigel system. The Astari took control of the deep space observation posts that had been watching for dangerous phenomena. The Zalani absorbed the agricultural colonies that had been feeding half the galaxy. "These resources are much better managed under proper galactic authority," Vextar announced. Human methods were wasteful and inefficient, but the new managers struggled with systems they did not fully understand. The asteroid mines operated at 60% of their previous output. The observation posts missed 2 potentially dangerous cosmic events in their first month. The agricultural colonies produced smaller harvests than expected. Technical difficulties, the council called these problems. Temporary setbacks while we optimize the systems. Alan continued taking notes. He watched alien technicians study human-built machines with confusion. He saw supervisors holding instruction manuals that had been written for human workers who no longer existed. He observed meetings where aliens tried to figure out why procedures that had worked perfectly for years suddenly failed. The most telling moment came during a council session about trade efficiency. Delegate Hixander of the Triarchs presented statistics showing declining performance across multiple sectors. "Cargo delivery times have increased by an average of 18%, Hixander reported. "Manufacturing output has dropped 12%. Service response times are up 27%. "These numbers will improve as our people gain experience," Vexatar replied confidently. "We are dealing with systems designed by a younger species. With proper mature oversight, efficiency will increase beyond previous levels." Alan almost smiled as he wrote this down. The council truly believed that humans had been holding them back, rather than holding everything together. The aliens brought their own cultural approaches to human-designed systems. The Karathi emphasized precision and protocol, turning simple 5-minute procedures into hour-long ceremonies. The Astari insisted on meditation and spiritual consultation before making technical decisions. The Zalani preferred committee discussions for choices that humans had made instantly. "We are bringing wisdom and thoughtfulness to processes that humans handled with reckless speed," explained Astari High researcher Veltara. "Quality is more important than efficiency, but quality suffered too. Without human troubleshooters, small problems became big ones. Equipment that humans had maintained casually began failing in ways that stumped alien engineers. Systems that had run smoothly for decades started producing errors that no one knew how to fix. The council blamed these issues on sabotage. "The humans must have programmed their systems to fail after they left," Morthak suggested during one heated session. "This is exactly the kind of treachery we expected from them." Alan wrote this down carefully. The aliens preferred conspiracy theories to admitting they might have made a mistake. As months passed, the problems grew worse instead of better. Supply chains that had operated like clockwork began missing deliveries. Communication networks developed mysterious lag times. Even simple maintenance tasks took twice as long as before. We need more time to understand these human-designed systems, Vextar finally admitted during a private council meeting. Perhaps we should send a delegation to Earth to request technical documentation. Absolutely not, Morthak replied quickly. That would show weakness. We cannot let the humans think we need their help. Then what do you suggest? Asked Zenyal. We improve the systems ourselves. We are not some primitive species that needs human assistance. Our scientists are just as capable as theirs. Alan carefully noted the date of this conversation. 3 months after the human exodus, the council was already discussing whether to ask for help, but pride prevented them from acting on their growing concerns. Instead, they doubled down on their original position. Public statements praised the improved stability and wisdom of the new galactic order. Private meetings focused on troubleshooting problems that seemed to multiply faster than solutions could be found. The humans designed these systems to be deliberately confusing, became the standard explanation for any technical difficulty. They wanted to make themselves indispensable. Alan filled another notebook with observations about alien psychology. When faced with evidence that contradicted their beliefs, the council members created new explanations rather than questioning their original assumptions. The truth was becoming clear to anyone willing to see it, but the council was not willing. They had committed too much pride and political capital to the idea that humans were dangerous and unnecessary. Admitting error now would mean accepting that they had driven away the galaxy's most capable species for no good reason. So they continued celebrating their victory while their civilization slowly began to crumble around them. And Alan kept taking notes, documenting every moment of their self-inflicted decline. Captain Maya Johnson guided her cargo ship Serenity toward the loading dock at Zalani Station 7. She was one of the last humans still working in council space, contracted to deliver emergency medical supplies that no other species could transport safely. The cargo hold contained radiation medicine that required precise temperature control during transport. Maya watched through her cockpit window as alien dock workers struggled with equipment that had once operated smoothly. Loading clamps meant to grab cargo containers were sparking and failing to connect properly. What should have been a 15-minute docking procedure had stretched to over an hour. The Karathi dock supervisor, Velshak, appeared on her communication screen. His glass-like face showed the stress patterns that meant frustration in his species. Captain Johnson, we are having technical difficulties with the loading systems, Velshak admitted. Can you wait while we troubleshoot the problem? Maya looked at her cargo manifest. The medicine was needed urgently on 3 different worlds. I can help if you want. The magnetic clamps look like they're installed backwards. Impossible, Velshak replied. We followed the standard installation procedures exactly as written. Maya pulled up the technical specifications on her tablet and transmitted them to the station. The polarity markings on the clamps are reversed. See the red stripe there? It should face toward the ship, not away from it. Velshak studied the diagram with growing embarrassment. But these procedures worked perfectly when humans maintained them. Because human dock workers caught these kinds of mistakes before they became problems, Maya explained patiently. We just flip them quietly and move on. No one thought to document every small fix. After the clamps were corrected, the loading process went smoothly, but Velshak looked troubled as cargo containers moved into Maya's ship. How many other small fixes did humans make without telling us? He asked. Maya shrugged. Thousands, probably. Most were so minor that we didn't think about them. A bolt tightened here. A calibration adjusted there. A safety protocol bypassed when sensors gave false readings. You do these things automatically after a while. And now, no one knows what they were. Now, no one knows what they were, Maya agreed. Similar. Scenes played out across the galaxy as the absence of human expertise became impossible to ignore. On Research Station Enlightenment, Dr. Ben Foster packed the last of the quantum resonance chambers that kept the station's experiments running. The alien scientists watched nervously as he prepared the delicate equipment for transport. "These chambers require daily recalibration," said Dr. Quintar, an astrophysicist who had worked alongside Ben for 2 years. "You showed me the procedure several times, but I still don't understand the mathematics." Ben paused in his packing. "The math is actually pretty complex. It involves 17 different variables that interact in ways that our computers can barely track. We tried to write it down a few times, but your current computational systems can't handle the calculations. So how do you do it?" "Experience, mostly. After calibrating these things for 3 years, you develop a feel for how they should sound and vibrate. It's more art than science at this point." Dr. Quintar's light dimmed with worry. "But without that experience, how are we supposed to maintain them?" Ben sealed the last chamber in its transport case. "I honestly don't know. These chambers took our best engineers 4 years to design and another 2 years to build. The theory behind them fills about 3,000 pages of mathematics that assumes you already understand quantum field dynamics." After Ben departed, the research station tried to continue its experiments with the remaining equipment. Within a week, all the quantum chambers had destabilized. The station's primary research project, which had been running continuously for 5 years, ground to a complete halt. Meanwhile, Senator Alan Pierce continued attending council sessions and filling his notebooks with observations. His collection had grown to 7 thick volumes documenting the systematic breakdown of galactic civilization. During one session, High Delegate Morthak presented a report on industrial production that painted an increasingly grim picture. "Manufacturing output has declined by 32% across all sectors," Morthak announced. "Quality control failures have increased by 115%. Workplace accidents are up 67%. These are clearly the result of sabotage," Vexistar declared. "The humans must have programmed their systems to fail deliberately." Alan wrote this down, adding his own note about the council's refusal to consider simpler explanations. The truth was that human workers had been quietly preventing most of these problems for years. They had spotted defective parts before they reached assembly lines. They had identified safety hazards and fixed them without formal reports. They had improvised solutions to unexpected problems that kept production lines running smoothly. Without human troubleshooters, alien workers followed procedures exactly as written. When situations arose that weren't covered in the manuals, work stopped while committees debated proper responses. Quality suffered as inexperienced workers missed subtle signs of defects that humans would have caught immediately. The situation grew worse when communication networks began experiencing systematic failures. The galactic internet, built on human-designed protocols, started developing lag times and connection drops that frustrated users across multiple star systems. "The network architecture is fundamentally flawed," declared Asthari tech mystic Lynn Era during an emergency council session. "Human engineering prioritized speed over stability." Alan noted that the same network had operated without major problems for over a decade under human maintenance. The issues had only started after alien technicians began optimizing systems they didn't fully understand. Medical facilities faced the most serious problems. Advanced surgical equipment designed by human doctors began malfunctioning during critical procedures. Alien surgeons trained to use human techniques found themselves unable to adapt when their tools behaved unexpectedly. Dr. Claire Adams, running the skeletal human embassy staff on Asthari Prime, received increasingly desperate requests for technical assistance. Alien medical professionals came to her with problems that would have been routine maintenance issues for human doctors. "The cardiac bypass machine keeps shutting down during surgery," explained Chief Surgeon Zixandrel, his light flickering with distress. "We've lost 3 patients this week." Claire examined the technical specifications. The machine is working exactly as designed. It has 17 different safety protocols that will stop the procedure if any parameter goes outside acceptable ranges. You need to adjust your surgical technique to work within those limits. But we've always performed surgery this way, for thousands of years. The machine was designed for human surgical methods, Claire said gently. Your approach isn't wrong, but it's different enough to trigger the safety systems. You'd need to retrain your entire medical staff to use human techniques, or rebuild the machines to accommodate your methods. How long would that take? Retraining? Maybe 2 years if you had human instructors. Rebuilding the machines? 5 to 10 years if you had the original engineering specifications. Zixandrel's light dimmed to almost nothing. And those specifications are classified under Terran medical patents, Claire said apologetically. I don't have authorization to share them. The irony was lost on most aliens, but not on Alan Pierce. The Council had demanded that humans submit to oversight and share all their technology. Now that humans were gone, the aliens desperately wanted access to the very knowledge they had tried to control. But Earth's response to all requests was the same polite form letter. Technical assistance would be considered only within the framework of formal diplomatic relations between sovereign equals. As winter approached on many worlds, heating systems that had never failed before began shutting down. The problems were traced to maintenance protocols that assumed human oversight. Without regular adjustments that humans had made automatically, the systems gradually drifted out of optimal settings until they triggered safety shutdowns. The humans deliberately designed these systems to require their intervention, Vextar complained during yet another emergency session. This is economic warfare. Alan wrote down the Chancellor's words, along with his own observation that the systems had been designed to be maintainable by any competent technician. The problem was that human competence had hidden how complex many seemingly simple tasks actually were. The galaxy had spent decades watching humans work without understanding what they were really doing. Now, as civilization slowly unraveled, around them the Council faced a choice between their pride and their survival. But they weren't ready to make that choice yet. The breakdown was still gradual enough to deny, still explainable through sabotage theories and implementation problems. It would take more time and more failures before the Council admitted what was becoming obvious to everyone else. The humans had not been parasites or aggressors. They had been the glue holding galactic civilization together, and now that glue was gone. 18 months after humanity's departure, Chancellor Vextar stood before an emergency council session that he had never wanted to call. His usual confidence had been replaced by barely controlled panic as he faced the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. The primary data networks have experienced a cascade failure, Vextar announced, his 4 arms trembling slightly. 40% of our administrative systems are now offline. The chamber erupted in alarmed sounds from dozens of different species. The Karathi delegates created a discordant chiming as their crystalline bodies shook with distress. The Astari dimmed to worried amber hues. Even the usually calm triarchs hummed in frequencies that conveyed deep concern. The network collapse had started small, with occasional connection problems that alien technicians attributed to normal maintenance issues. But over the past month, the failures had accelerated beyond anyone's ability to repair them. Critical databases became inaccessible. Communication between star systems ground to a crawl. Financial records disappeared into digital black holes. How extensive is the damage? Asked High Delegate Morthak, though his tone suggested he feared the answer. Complete infrastructure failure on 17 major worlds, Vextar replied grimly. Partial failures on 43 others. We estimate that full restoration could take years, assuming we can identify the root causes. Dr. Claire Adams sat in her small office at the Human Embassy on Astari Prime, reviewing yet another desperate request for technical assistance. In the past week, she had received over 3,000 emergency calls from alien officials begging for help with systems that had operated flawlessly under human management. The latest request came from High Researcher Zintal, whose medical facility was facing a crisis that threatened thousands of lives. "Dr. Adams, please!" Zintal pleaded through the communication screen, her crystalline form flickering with distress. "The quantum tunneling transporters have failed completely. We cannot move critically injured patients to surgical facilities. People are dying while we search for solutions." Claire consulted her files carefully. The medical transporters were among humanity's most sophisticated inventions, using quantum mechanics to instantly move patients across vast distances. The technology had revolutionized emergency medicine throughout the galaxy. "I understand your situation," Claire said sympathetically, "but the transporter specifications are classified under Terran defense protocols. The quantum tunneling technology has potential military applications, so I cannot share the technical details without proper authorization." "But humans built these systems," Zintal protested. "You worked alongside us for years. Surely you can provide basic maintenance information." "We operated them and maintained them," Claire corrected gently. "But the underlying principles and construction details were always proprietary Earth technology. Your scientists understood how to use the transporters, but not how they actually worked." The painful truth was becoming clear across the galaxy. Humans had not simply participated in galactic civilization. They had been its hidden foundation. While aliens focused on grand philosophical debates and cultural ceremonies, humans had quietly solved the practical problems that kept everything running. Human engineers had bridged compatibility gaps between different species' technologies. When Karathi precision instruments needed to interface with Astari energy systems, humans had designed the translation protocols that made communication possible. When Zalani administrators required data in formats their computers could process, humans had written the conversion software. Now those bridges were collapsing. Systems that had never failed before began producing error messages in languages that alien technicians could not read. Equipment that had operated smoothly for decades suddenly required calibration procedures that no one remembered how to perform. The crisis reached its peak when the Astari homeworld's atmospheric processors began shutting down. The massive machines that maintained breathable air for billions of inhabitants were failing in sequence, and alien engineers could not determine why. "The processors are rejecting our command inputs," reported Chief Engineer Calveth during an emergency call to Claire's office. They respond for a few hours, then return to shutdown mode. "Without human oversight protocols, we cannot maintain stable atmospheric composition." Claire felt a chill as she realized the implications. "How long?" "Before the atmosphere becomes dangerous. 6 days, maybe 7 if we implement rationing protocols." "Have you tried restoring the original human-programmed settings?" "We tried, but the access codes have changed automatically. The systems are locked into some kind of security mode that we cannot bypass." Claire closed her eyes, remembering similar systems she had worked with during her training. "The processors have adaptive security features. After a certain period without human authentication, they default to emergency preservation mode. You need human command codes to restore normal operation. And those codes are classified under the same protocols as everything else. I would need authorization from Earth to provide them." The silence that followed was heavy with the weight of billions of lives hanging in the balance. Calveth's form pulsed with desperate energy. "Dr. Adams, this is not about politics or pride anymore. This is about survival. Surely your government would not let innocent people die over diplomatic disputes." Claire felt the weight of the moment. "I will send an urgent request to Earth immediately. But you need to understand, the only way to get those codes quickly is through formal diplomatic channels. Earth will want to negotiate terms for ongoing technical support, not just provide emergency assistance." "What kind of terms?" "I imagine they'll want full restoration of diplomatic relations, trade agreements, and representation in the Council as equals rather than subjects." Calveth's light dimmed as he contemplated the cost of survival. "The Council will never agree to that. Too much pride is at stake. Then you'll need to find another solution in 6 days. Similar conversations were happening throughout Council space. Hospital life support systems failed during critical operations. Spaceport traffic control networks crashed, stranding thousands of ships. Power generation facilities shut down when their automated systems encountered errors that had never occurred during human operation. The Council met in continuous emergency session, desperately searching for solutions that did not require admitting their mistake. But every day brought new crises that pushed them closer to the inevitable conclusion. "We must contact Earth directly," suggested Triarch Representative Hixander during one heated debate. "Surely they will respond to humanitarian concerns." "Any contact with Earth validates their position," Morthak replied stubbornly. "If we negotiate now, we admit that we need them. Our authority will never recover." "Our authority means nothing if our civilization collapses," Vextar said quietly. For the first time since the crisis began, the Chancellor sounded defeated rather than defiant. Senator Alan Pierce continued documenting everything from his observer seat. His notebooks now filled an entire storage cabinet, recording the systematic breakdown of a galactic government that had convinced itself it could function without its most capable species. The final straw came when the Council's own building began experiencing critical failures. Climate control systems fluctuated wildly between freezing and sweltering temperatures. The translation networks that allowed different species to communicate began producing garbled messages. Even basic lighting failed as power distribution systems struggled with load-balancing algorithms that humans had fine-tuned over years of careful adjustment. As delegates shivered in an unheated chamber, trying to discuss solutions to problems they barely understood, Vexitar finally accepted what many had realized months earlier. They needed help, and there was only one place to get it. "Prepare a formal communication to Earth," Vextar ordered his staff. "Request immediate diplomatic talks regarding technical assistance and renewed cooperation." "What terms should we offer?" asked his aide. Vextar looked around the failing chamber, listening to alien voices raised in panic and desperation. "Whatever they want. We have no choice left." The message was transmitted within hours, carrying with it the weight of a humbled civilization. Finally, ready to admit its mistake. But would Earth be willing to forgive the species that had driven them away? And even if they were, would there be enough time to prevent the complete collapse of galactic society? The answer would determine the fate of billions of lives across hundreds of worlds. 2 years after humanity's withdrawal, Senator Alan Pierce finally stood to address the Galactic Council. The chamber was a shadow of its former glory. Half the display systems flickered with error messages. 3 species delegations attended, virtually because their transportation networks had failed. The air recycling system wheezed and hummed in ways that suggested imminent breakdown. Alan opened his thick notebook and looked around the assembled aliens. Many showed signs of stress and exhaustion. Chancellor Vexitar's blue skin had dulled to a sickly gray. The Karathi delegates' crystalline bodies bore stress fractures that caught the light in jagged patterns. Even the normally radiant Astari had dimmed to barely visible amber glows. "Honored members," Alan began, his voice carrying clearly through the chamber's failing sound system. "I believe you have some things you'd like to discuss." Vextar leaned forward desperately, his 4 arms reaching toward Alan as if grasping for salvation. "Senator Pierce, we need immediate technical assistance. Our entire civilization is grinding to a halt. Name your price. We'll pay anything." Alan consulted several pages of his careful observations, noting dates and incidents that tracked the systematic collapse of galactic society. "The United Terran Federation received your original ultimatum 24 months ago. You demanded that we submit to Council oversight and cease our military expansion. We complied fully with your requirements. But the current economic situation, the infrastructure failures, Surely these are humanitarian emergencies that transcend political disputes, Morthak interrupted, his glass-like voice cracking with strain. Alan smiled with genuine warmth. These are indeed serious problems. However, as you clearly stated 2 years ago, Council affairs are not Earth's concern. We are simply honoring your wish for us to mind our own business. The chamber fell silent except for the labored sounds of failing life support systems. Several delegates shifted uncomfortably as they realized their own words were being used against them. Astari Representative Zenial pulsed with urgent, desperate colors. Senator Pierce, we may have spoken hastily before. Surely reasonable beings can reach a new arrangement. We are willing to discuss modified terms for human participation in galactic affairs. Of course you are, Alan agreed pleasantly. Earth is always open to negotiating new relationships between sovereign equals. But the previous arrangement, where humans were junior partners expected to provide labor and innovation while having no real voice in galactic policy. That arrangement is permanently ended. He closed his notebook with a decisive snap. The Terran Federation will be happy to discuss mutual defense treaties, technology sharing agreements, and expanded trade. Partnerships between equals, with full representation and voting rights in this council. A murmur of dismay rippled through the alien delegates. They had spent decades viewing humans as useful but inferior beings who needed their guidance. The idea of treating Earth as an equal partner challenged their fundamental assumptions about galactic hierarchy. What exactly are you proposing? Vextar asked slowly. We're not proposing anything, Alan replied cheerfully. We're simply indicating our willingness to discuss proposals that you might wish to make. After all, you're the ones with the problems that need solving. High Delegate Morthak's crystalline form rang with harmonics of frustration. But surely you understand the urgency of our situation. People are dying while we debate protocols and procedures. Alan's expression became more serious. People have been dying for 2 years while your council pretended that human expertise was unnecessary. Earth offered multiple times to provide emergency assistance through normal diplomatic channels. Each request was rejected because you preferred to maintain the fiction that humans were unreliable and dangerous. He pulled out a data tablet and scrolled through a long list of entries. 47 requests for medical assistance, 62 offers to help with infrastructure maintenance, 93 proposals for technical consultation, all rejected by various council committees because accepting help from humans would undermine your position. The silence that followed was broken only by the sound of environmental systems struggling to maintain basic life support. Several aliens looked genuinely shocked as they realized how many opportunities for help they had refused. We were not aware that Earth had made such offers, Zenial said quietly. Because your representatives never bothered to pass them along to you, Alan replied. It's much easier to maintain the narrative that humans are selfish and uncooperative if you don't mention their repeated attempts to assist. Captain Maya Johnson entered the chamber at that moment, her simple uniform a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by the alien delegates. She had been waiting outside for Alan's signal to proceed with the next phase of their carefully planned presentation. Ladies, gentlemen, and honored beings, Maya announced, I have an urgent message from President Carter regarding the Astari atmospheric crisis. Every Astari in the chamber blazed with sudden hope. Their homeworld had less than 18 hours of breathable air remaining, and they had exhausted all possible solutions except begging Earth for help. Maya read from an official document. The United Terran Federation is prepared to provide immediate emergency assistance to restore atmospheric processing on Astari Prime. Our technical teams can have your systems operational within 6 hours of arrival. The relief in the chamber was palpable, but Maya continued reading. This assistance is offered purely on humanitarian grounds, with no political conditions attached. However, Earth wishes to clarify that this is a one-time emergency intervention. Any future technical support will require formal diplomatic relations between the Federation and the Astari government as equal sovereign partners. The message was clear. Earth would not let innocent people die while politicians argued, but neither would they continue providing free technical support to governments that refused to treat them with respect. Vexitar stood slowly, the weight of inevitable defeat visible in every movement. What would formal diplomatic relations entail? Alan smiled and reopened his notebook. Nothing unreasonable. Recognition of Earth as a sovereign nation with the right to conduct its own affairs without outside interference. A permanent seat on the Galactic Council with full voting rights. Fair trade agreements that don't favor council members over human businesses. Standard diplomatic protocols that treat Earth representatives as equals rather than subordinates. And in return, Earth would resume normal participation in galactic civilization. Our engineers would help maintain critical infrastructure. Our researchers would share scientific discoveries. Our diplomats would work to resolve conflicts peacefully. Our ships would resume carrying cargo and passengers throughout Council space. The offer was everything the Council desperately needed, but accepting it meant admitting that their entire approach to humanity had been wrong from the beginning. It meant acknowledging that humans were not dangerous children who needed supervision, but competent adults who deserved respect. How long do we have to consider these terms? Morthak asked. Alan consulted his watch. For the Asthari atmospheric emergency, about 17 hours before the situation becomes irreversible. For the broader diplomatic questions, take all the time you need. Earth has waited 2 years already. We can wait longer if necessary. And if we refuse, then you refuse, Alan said simply. Earth will continue to exist and prosper in our own space. We built a successful civilization before joining the galactic community, and we can do it again. The question is whether you can do the same without us. The chamber fell silent as the delegates contemplated their options. Outside, alien technicians struggled with failing systems that they could not repair. Emergency broadcasts reported new crises hourly as infrastructure collapsed across dozens of worlds. Finally, Vexitar spoke the words that would reshape galactic politics forever. The Galactic Council formally requests the immediate return of Earth to full membership status, with all rights and privileges of a sovereign equal partner. Alan smiled and stood to shake the Chancellor's outstretched hand. Earth accepts your invitation to rejoin galactic civilization. Welcome to the future, Chancellor. I think you're going to like it better than the past. As Alan left the chamber, to begin urgent preparations for the atmospheric rescue mission, he reflected on humanity's long journey from the stars back to the stars. Sometimes the most powerful thing humans could do was simply walk away and let others discover what they had lost. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had come home on their own terms, as equals among equals. And perhaps most importantly, they had proven that true strength came not from domination, but from the quiet confidence to stand up and leave when respect was denied. The age of human subservience was over. The age of human partnership had begun.